Okay, so let's talk about smoking.
Right.
You already know the headlines, probably. The tar, all those toxins, and just how hard it can be to quit nicotine.
It's incredibly tough for many people.
Yeah, and maybe you're listening and you get all that, you understand the risks, maybe you've even tried quitting yourself, but, well, it's a challenge.
Definitely. Habit, stress, maybe just liking it.
Yeah.
Lots of reasons it's not simple.
Exactly. And it's that sort of messy reality we want to explore today.
We're not here to, go over the dangers again or push anyone to quit like right now.
Right. Because what if now just isn't the time? What if quitting feels like too much? That's where we found something pretty interesting, a different kind of angle for smokers who maybe aren't ready to stop just yet.
Our focus today is on this new piece of tech. It's called the Anti-Tar Revolutionary 3-Stage Cigarette Filter.
Anti-tar. Okay. Sounds, well, pretty straightforward, doesn't it?
Yeah.
We're talking about a little gadget, small, lightweight. It's made of this food-grade clear plastic, apparently, and it just slips onto the end of your cigarette, regular or slim.
That's the idea. And it looks, pretty simple at first. Doesn't scream high-tech.
But that's deceptive.
That's what the information suggests, yeah.
Yeah.
Inside that simple casing is what they call a pretty clever piece of engineering, a 3-stage filtration system.
3 stages.
Yeah.
And the big claim, the headline here, is that this little filter can block up to 90% of the tar and nicotine.
And, get this, over 7,000 other harmful chemicals found in cigarette smoke. That's the figure they quote.
Wow. Okay. 90%. That's a lot.
It is. It suggests potentially a much cleaner, maybe smoother smoking experience.
And crucially, they say it does this without messing up the flavor or, the enjoyment.
That's part of the core claim, yes. That the satisfaction remains.
Okay, let's dive into that then. This 3-stage system. How does it actually, work? What's the magic?
Well, it's described as quite ingenious. Stage 1 is all about that initial moment the smoke hits the filter. When you inhale, the smoke goes into this chamber, and it's designed specifically to slow the smoke down.
Slow it down. Okay, why do that? What's the point of slowing it?
Well, by reducing the speed, it gives the larger tar particles more chance to get, captured.
Ah, okay.
Think about the really heavy, sticky stuff. This first stage is apparently targeting what causes those, yellow stains on fingers and teeth.
Right, that residue.
Exactly.
Right.
Slowing it down just increases the surface area contact time inside the chamber, letting more of that condense and stick.
Got it. So stage 1, catch the big sticky culprits. What happens next?
Then the smoke moves on to stage 2. This part uses a mesh-based separator.
Like a sieve.
Kinda, yeah, but finer. This mesh is designed to trap the smaller tar droplets, nicotine residues, and other chemical byproducts that got past stage 1.
Okay, so filtering out even more stuff. Now, does that make it harder to pull? Like some filters really restrict the airflow?
That's a really important point, isn't it?
Yeah.
The information stresses that this stage significantly reduces the inhaled toxins, but it's engineered specifically not to increase that draw resistance.
Yeah.
How hard you have to puff.
They want it to feel natural.
Good.
Yeah.
Yeah, nobody wants to feel like they're sucking concrete through a straw.
Exactly.
So, okay, we've slowed it down, caught the big stuff, got the medium stuff. What's the last hurdle for the smoke?
The final stage, stage 3, is where it gets really microscopic. The smoke passes through something called a molecular sieve.
Molecular sieve. Sounds technical.
It is, essentially. Think of it as an incredibly fine filter with these tiny, precisely sized pores.
Okay.
And these pores are designed to block even the really fine particles, microtoxins, that, often slip through traditional cigarette filters.
Wow. So by the time the smoke actually gets to you, it's been through this kind of 3-step cleaning process.
That's the principle, yes. Aiming to strip out a huge chunk of the harmful stuff. Okay. Now, the info we looked at really leans into why smokers might be interested in this. Because, let's face it, standard cigarette filters, they only do so much, right?
Exactly. Most smokers probably realize traditional filters aren't catching everything. They mainly get the larger bits.
So that's where anti-tar comes in, potentially.
Right. It addresses that gap, perhaps.
Okay, so the first big point they hammer home is traps 90% of toxins, tar, and nicotine.
Yeah, circling back to that core claim. The 3-stage system is the how, delivering cleaner smoke, potentially minimizing long-term damage. That's the pitch.
Makes sense. If you're worried but not quitting, reducing the intake seems logical.
Absolutely. The idea of lowering that cumulative exposure, cigarette by cigarette, could be really appealing.
Then there's this one, Improves the flavor of your cigarette. Now, that seems counterintuitive. Filtering stuff out makes it taste better.
Well, the thinking is by removing the harsh chemical taste, that sort of acrid edge, and the heavy tar, what's left is supposedly a purer taste of the tobacco itself. Less of the nasty stuff masking the actual flavor.
Okay. I can sort of see the logic there. Removing the interference.
Potentially, yeah.
Next up, stops the coughing. I think a lot of smokers would relate to the dreaded smoker's cough.
Definitely. And the link here is pretty direct, isn't it? Less tar, fewer irritants getting into your lungs.
Should mean less phlegm, less irritation.
Logically, yes. Less buildup, less reason to cough, especially that, morning cough that's so common. Easier breathing is mentioned too.
Okay. And then the visible stuff, no more stains on fingers and teeth. That's a big cosmetic downside for many.
And that links back directly to stage 1, doesn't it?
Right, catching the sticky tar.
Exactly. Trapping those resins before they make contact, preventing those yellow marks.
All right, this next one feels crucial for the actual experience. Doesn't interfere with smoking draw. We kind of touched on this.
But it's worth repeating, yeah.
Because if it feels weird or hard to smoke, people just won't use it, right?
Absolutely. User experience is key.
Yeah.
They claim the engineering hits the sweet spot filters effectively, but still feels like a normal cigarette draw.
Okay. And practicalities, reusable for up to 3 cigarettes per filter.
Yeah, so you don't need a new one for every single cigarette. Makes it more convenient, maybe more cost-effective, too.
1 filter, maybe 3 smokes. Got it. And the last point here is interesting. It supports quitting when you're ready. They're not saying it is a quit tool.
No, not explicitly. But they mention anecdotal reports, people using them and finding they just smoke less over time, or even eventually stop.
How would that work?
The thinking seems to be, maybe, as your body gets used to cleaner smoke, less harshness, fewer chemical hits, perhaps the dependence level naturally reduces a bit. Less negative reinforcement, maybe. Could make it easier if you do decide you want to cut back or quit later on. It's speculative, but interesting.
Yeah. It's presented as a way to, and I think this framing is interesting, smoke smarter.
Right. It avoids judgment. It acknowledges someone might still be smoking, but offers a way to potentially manage the risks differently. Harm reduction.
Harm reduction. That's the key phrase, isn't it?
It's a very pragmatic approach.
Yeah.
It recognizes that quitting immediately isn't always the path for everyone. So how can we minimize the damage in the meantime?
The source material uses a really good analogy, actually, like putting on a seatbelt in a car.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. You're still driving, you're still taking the inherent risks of being on the road, but you're actively doing something to make it safer.
That's a great comparison. Really clear. Reducing harm within an existing activity.
And they included some quotes, some feedback from actual users, which helps make it feel more real.
Always good to hear experiences.
There's Mark G. from Texas, smoked for 20 years. He says he feels like he's taking care of myself without having to quit.
That captures it perfectly, doesn't it? That feeling of doing something positive, even within the context of smoking.
Then Elena V. from New York. She noticed her morning cough got better, and she actually started smoking less after just 2 weeks.
Wow. 2 weeks. That's quite fast for noticeable changes.
Hey.
Hints at the physical benefits and maybe that reduction in consumption we talked about.
Yeah. And Devar in Toronto, he'd tried quitting multiple times, found it really tough, but said this filter helped him cut down his intake and cravings naturally without the stress.
That's powerful, especially for someone who's struggled with quitting before. Suggests it might ease some of that difficulty, perhaps by changing the chemical delivery slightly.
So, okay, if you're listening and this sounds like something maybe worth looking into, the source does give some details on getting them.
Right, the practical side.
Mentions a discount, potentially up to 45% off, and free shipping if you buy bundles.
And gives an idea of quantity. Like, 1 box has enough filters for a pack-a-day smoker for about 15 days.
Yeah, something like that. And a 6-box bundle could last, what, up to 3 months?
Seems reasonable if each filter lasts for about 3 cigarettes.
And using them sounds dead simple. Just plug it on to the end of your cigarette.
And smoke like normal. No special technique needed.
Easy integration, right? Probably key for adoption.
Absolutely. Needs to be seamless.
So, as we kind of wrap up this deep dive, it feels important to say again, smoking is personal. Quitting is personal. It's a journey. No judgment here at all.
Absolutely not. And things like this anti-eye tar filter, they represent maybe another option, a harm reduction strategy for people who aren't quitting right now.
It's not about making smoking healthier. We all know that's not really on the table.
Yeah.
But maybe it's a step in a different direction.
Yeah, a direction towards potentially better health outcomes, fewer toxins, maybe less regret down the line, even if you continue to smoke for a while.
It offers that sense of maybe taking a bit more control.
A sense of agency, exactly.
Yeah.
And the possibility of feeling a bit better physically while doing it.
So here's maybe the final thought to leave you with. If quitting just isn't on your radar right this moment, does it make sense to look at ways to, lessen the blow in the meantime?
It's a valid question to ask yourself, isn't it?
Definitely something to think about. Consider the information, see if it resonates with your own situation.